Sorry about that. I think probably my internet went low. Now, and so I was talking about the Ali being wounded in the Battle of the Trench, and therefore when he was wounded on this day, on the 19th of Ramadan, 661, which is 40 years after the Hijrah in the counting of Islam, he could not survive, and he only lived for the next 3 days. And on the 21st of Ramadan, 40 years after Hijrah, that is the year 661, Ali died, and he was buried by his sons Hassan and Hussein in a secret grave right there. And so these are important things for us to note. But then who is telling us about all this history? Who is telling us about the life of Muhammad? The first man actually to write the biography of the Prophet Muhammad is Ibn Ishaq. That is in Silatul Rasulullah. That is, and this is around, because Ibn Ishaq departs around 765 AD. 765. Remember, Muhammad died in 632. But then the first biography we are having around 765 AD. That's almost 100 and so years afterwards. Now, we actually do not have the works of Ibn Ishaq as they were, as he wrote them. What we have is a revision of his work by Ibn Hisham. And Ibn Hisham lived around 833, left around 833 AD. And so whatever that he revised, what he removed from Ibn Ishaq, what he added, we actually do not know. But then the revision of Ibn Ishaq by Ibn Hisham is what we have, and that is where we get most of this history of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, the other sources that we have by what they call the Sahih al-Sita, or the 6 authentic books of the Hadith collection after the Quran, especially by Sunni Muslim. And this is Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, and all these ones. And this is from around 870 AD. Now you can notice that these are actually so many years afterwards. And then as we go on, we'll get around 900 AD, especially 923, and we find historians such as Al-Tabari, and we find these people now beginning to write the tafsirs and the tariq. We find people like Al-Baydawi, Imam Baydawi, Imam Shari, and all these. We are talking about that the Siratul Rasulullah, the life and times of the Prophet Muhammad. We find them around 200 years, written around 200 years after the Prophet Muhammad. So if Bukhari dies in the year 870, and that is exactly 240 years after Muhammad, and this is the man who is coming to collect the sayings of Muhammad. No wonder he collected around 60,000, but only brought them down, all the way down to around 6,000, and then began to scrutinize all of them. And the means that he used, we cannot tell. We cannot tell the means that he used to come up with the history that we have. So it is very important for you to notice that what we read today is from such a period of time. In fact, even the Ottomanic manuscripts, we do not have them today as they were, and we actually cannot tell the Ottomanic Quran how it was in terms of manuscripts. I don't think there is any, and I would love to be corrected if there is any Ottomanic manuscripts that that can still be found today. And so these are very important things for you to get to notice. And then I think I need to also take time and get to talk about the life of the Arabs before Islam. because it's only this time and getting to know how life was in the Arabian Peninsula that will help us understand some of the events that we find in the Quran. For instance, when we find that the Quran condemns the issue of Allah having daughters and sons, what is the background of it? What is the background of Muhammad denying that Allah cannot have sons, he cannot have daughters, he cannot have children, because he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have a consort? That is what Surah 6 verse 101 says. What is the background of this? In Surah 2 verse 158 we read that Safa and Marwa, the two hills in Makkah, are the symbols, the signs of Allah. What is the background of this? In Surah 53, Surah 53 again, and verse 19 to 22, we read about Lata, Alat, Uzza, and Manat. These are goddesses among the Arabs. What is the background story about them? What do you need to understand? In Surah Al-Qurayshi, we read about the Lord of Makkah. These are things that we need to understand. Again, in Surah 27 and verse 91 and 92. And so many verses of the Quran. When you approach the Quran, you need to go outside of the Quran to get to understand. They call it Sababul Nuzul. What is the reason for this verse talking as it is saying whatever it is saying? Because when you get to understand that, then you will actually get to begin to understand the Quran. Let me, for a short period, just take you to the life of the Arabs. Now, before Islam, this period has been called Waqatul Jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance. Now, I do not believe that the Arabs completely had no knowledge. But what has been said is that the Arabs in this time, they had no religious knowledge. Most of them did, worshipped gods and goddesses. We are told that apparently there were 360 gods in and around Al-Kaaba during the life, the period prior to Muhammad's birth. 360 gods. And one of these gods was Hubal. Hubal is said to have been a god that was brought from Moab. Now, it is imperative for you as a Christian to note that Hubal was actually worshipped in Israel. And in Israel, they called him Habal. The Arabs call him Hubal. It's the same God that Elijah the prophet fought against his prophets, telling them to choose between Baal, and Yahweh, the true God of Israel. And besides this, the Arabs from different areas, they came every year to perform the pilgrimage. Israel. So it's very important for you to get to notice that some of these things, you got to understand them outside the Quran, so that when you come into the Quran, you will be able to understand what is happening. Allow me to stop here for today, and sorry for the interruptions with the internet and the calls coming in through. But then there are brethren who have asked me to talk about various topics, and I will be narrowing down to those topics. But I felt like we needed to lay a background in what was before Islam as we know it today. And there are scholars that would oppose us using this terminology pre-Islam, because they feel like Islam has been there from the days of Adam, in the days of Abraham and Ishmael. But then that knowledge was lost for a period. But these are things again that we can talk about, and these are things that we need to analyze, not just talk about them. We need to analyze, because there is what the Muslim scholars would say, and again, everybody has their own biases in terms of history. I have my own biases. You do have your own biases as you read and understand things. But then it is important, and it's imperative for you to get to understand where you're coming from. And so for Islam, as we study the Quran, we need to understand some of these things. For instance, we know that, and I think this is one of the things I need to talk about before I end this recording, is that the Arabs, besides worshipping Allah, they saw him as the greater than. You know, they had these other goddesses and gods that they believed you would pray to them and they would intercede for you before Allah. And so they knew Allah. Muhammad did not come with the knowledge of Allah. They knew, the Arabs. In fact, the Quran says if you ask them about this and this, they will tell you it is Allah. So they had a knowledge of Him. That knowledge might have not been, full, but they knew Him. And in fact, Muhammad, his own father was called Abdullah, servant of Allah. Now, who gave him this name is his grandfather, Abu Muttalib. His grandfather was not a Muslim. He was not a Christian. He was a pagan. And in fact, the Arabs, since the days of Qusay, is the first guy. It is not Ishmael. It is Qusay who actually mobilized and made Makkah into a city. And so for that reason, his own clansmen, Bani Hashim, were respected. And so you need to get to understand these things so that they can help you get to understand the Quran. And so what am I saying? That because of the environment that existed, some of the things that Muhammad said were directly a reply to the problems that he faced at that time. So the Arabs, in their ignorance, some of them buried their daughters alive. And so you will see the Quran coming up with such questions like, the child will be asked, why did they bury you? And the Quran would deny profusely that Allah cannot have a son and He cannot have a daughter. So thank you for everyone who has been watching. My brother Joash, I can see you. Brother Maxi, can see you. My brother Yusuf and the rest, wherever you are watching from different parts of the world. Thank you. And I believe we'll get time and get to talk about other things. God bless you. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban.